Have you ever cried over something you desperately wanted, unaware that Allah was protecting you from what your eyes could not see? Sometimes the greatest mercy is not in what He gives, but in what He gently takes away. There are moments in life when a person stands at the edge of something they believed was meant for them, a dream, an opportunity, relationship, a path that felt so clear, so perfect, so aligned with everything they prayed for. And when that door suddenly closes, the heart feels a kind of heaviness that words cannot fully convey. It is a quiet breaking, a silent ache that lingers in the deepest corners of the soul. This is where the story of Ayaan begins, not in a moment of joy, success, or clarity, but in a moment of painful confusion. Ayaan was a man who worked with sincerity, who prayed with hope, and who dreamed with a heart that believed Allah never leaves His servant empty-handed. But when the opportunity he had spent months preparing for slipped away without warning, he felt something inside him collapse. It wasn't just the loss of a chance. It was the feeling of being unseen, unheard, and unanswered. He walked home that evening with a heaviness pressing against his chest, the kind of heaviness that makes every step feel slower, every breath feel shorter. The sky above him was dim, wrapped in muted shades of gold and gray, as if the world itself understood his disappointment. His thoughts kept circling the same silent question: why would Allah close this door when I needed it the most? Little did Ayaan know that a closed door is not always a rejection. Sometimes it is a shield, a divine barrier placed by a Lord who sees what the heart cannot. And sometimes the greatest blessings begin with the doors we never expected to lose. Ayaan woke up the next morning with a mind still weighed down by yesterday. There is a unique heaviness that comes after a loss, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, like a fog that settles over the heart and refuses to lift. He sat at the edge of his bed, fingers pressed against his forehead, listening to the faint sounds of his small neighborhood waking up. The call of a distant vendor, the bark of a stray dog, the soft hum of morning traffic. Everything around him felt normal, except his heart, which felt broken in ways he couldn't explain. The opportunity he had lost wasn't just a job, wasn't just a project, and wasn't just a moment of advancement. It was something he believed would finally lift him from years of struggle. Something that felt like the answer to long, sincere, do-as whispered in the late hours of the night. Something that felt like his moment, and yet it slipped away. He tried to distract himself. He opened his laptop, glanced at old applications, skimmed through emails, and attempted to plan his day. But his mind drifted back to the same thought over and over again. What did I do wrong? There is a kind of pain that is not caused by the world, but by one's own expectations. Ayaan was living inside that pain now. Later that afternoon, he walked through the narrow streets of his town, each step echoing in the quiet alleys lined with modest homes and aging brick walls. The sun had begun to soften, casting long shadows across the ground. Children played football near the dusty roadside, their laughter rising and falling like waves. Life continued with its usual rhythm, but Ayaan felt out of sync with it. He stopped near a small tea stall, a place he had visited countless times before. The owner, an elderly man with a gentle smile, handed him a warm cup without asking. Ayaan took it silently, grateful for the unspoken kindness. He sat on the wooden bench nearby, watching people pass by, each carrying their own stories, their own burdens, and their own unseen battles. A thought crept into his heart. Why does it feel like everyone else's life is moving forward except mine? But sometimes growth is happening in silence, in places the eyes cannot see. Ayaan leaned back, letting the warmth of the tea settle inside him. Yet, even in this small moment of comfort, the memory of the closed door returned, sharp and unavoidable. He remembered how he had prepared endlessly, how he had prayed with a hopeful heart, how everything seemed perfectly aligned until it wasn't. It felt unfair. It felt confusing. It felt like a punishment without explanation. But Allah does not close a door without purpose. That evening, Ayaan visited the masjid for Maghrib. He sat in the back corner, his eyes downcast, unable to fully focus. When the prayer ended, he remained seated, staring at the carpeted floor beneath him. He felt something rising in his chest, a quiet plea, a silent cry that words could not hold. Ya Allah, was this not good for me? Was I wrong to hope? Was I asking for something that would harm me? The masjid emptied slowly, small groups talking gently as they left. But Ayaan stayed behind, lost in thoughts he couldn't voice. He felt the struggle between his faith and his disappointment. Not rejection of Allah. Never that, but confusion about his timing, his wisdom, and his plan. Sometimes the hardest test is trusting Allah when the heart is hurting. As he stepped outside, the cool night breeze brushed against his face. The crescent moon hung quietly in the sky, delicate and distant. For a moment, Ayaan felt the world slow. He breathed deeply, letting the air fill the spaces where sadness sat heavy. But the ache remained. The next few days passed in a blur. He went through the motions, waking up, working through tasks, eating, sleeping, but nothing felt purposeful. His thoughts kept circling the same question. Why would Allah take away something that felt so right? Unknown to him, the answer was already unfolding. One afternoon, Ayaan received a message from a close acquaintance, someone who had also applied for the same opportunity he had lost. The message was brief, almost rushed. Ayaan, have you seen the news? Something's not right about that company. Ayaan frowned, confused. He opened his browser and began searching. Within minutes, article after article flooded his screen. The opportunity he had been chasing, the one he thought was his breakthrough, was tied to a massive financial collapse. The project had been halted. Employees were being dismissed. Payments were frozen. Investigations were beginning. The entire operation was falling apart. Ayaan stared at the screen in disbelief. His heart began to race, not with fear, but with realization. The door that closed wasn't a punishment. It was protection. A shield was placed between him and a storm he never saw coming. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes filling with tears. He didn't fight this time. They streamed quietly, falling onto his hands as he whispered to himself, Ya Allah, you knew what I did not know. For the first time in many days, the heaviness in his chest loosened. A warmth spread through him. Not joy exactly, but understanding. A soft, quiet understanding that Allah had saved him from something he would have walked straight into, blind and hopeful, unaware of the harm waiting on the other side. He thought back to his prayers, the late-night whispers, the hopeful du'as, the requests for what he believed was good. And he understood something deep. Allah doesn't just answer by giving. He also answers by taking away. But in both, there is mercy. That night, as Ayaan sat alone in his dimly lit room, the world outside quieting into darkness, he felt something he hadn't felt in days. Peace. A soft, reflective peace that settles into the heart only after a hardship has revealed its hidden wisdom. He realized that maybe losing that opportunity wasn't a setback. Maybe it was a pause, a divine pause, redirecting him towards something safer, something better, something truly meant for him. A closed door had become a saved life. And in that realization, Ayaan finally whispered a sentence he had struggled to say from the beginning. Alhamdulillah for what you gave and for what you did not. The days that followed were unlike any Ayaan had known. He had begun to wake with a lighter heart, a heart softened by the quiet revelation that Allah's wisdom is beyond human understanding. But even as peace settled around him, life tested him once more. For faith is not measured in moments of clarity, but in the endurance of trials that come quietly, unannounced, yet with a purpose that only the heart can eventually perceive. One morning, as Ayaan walked through the narrow streets of his town, he noticed a commotion near the market square. People were gathered in small clusters, murmuring anxiously, their faces tense. Ayaan approached carefully, curiosity pushing him forward. There, he discovered that the company he had originally sought to join, the one that had collapsed weeks ago, had been under investigation for corruption. The investigation revealed mismanagement, unethical practices, and the eventual dismissal of several high-ranking officials. The people he had seen celebrating potential opportunities were now facing disappointment, fear, and financial ruin. Ayaan's chest tightened, not from shock this time, but from awe. He realized again how narrowly he had been protected. The door that had closed for him weeks ago had shielded him from ruin. The thought struck him deeply. Had he been granted that position, he would have walked into a disaster, unaware of the consequences awaiting him. It was a subtle yet profound reminder of Allah's unseen hand guiding the lives of those who trust him. That evening, Ayaan returned home and sat quietly by the window, the soft light of dusk washing over his small room. He reflected on the months of struggle, of hope deferred, and of the inner turmoil he had endured. His mind traced the timeline of events, the closed door, the disappointment, the unanswered prayers, and now the revelation of what could have been. Each memory held its own weight, yet they all converged into a singular understanding. Allah's wisdom is perfect and his timing flawless. But the test did not end there. As Ayaan began to rebuild his life with renewed faith, another challenge emerged. One that tested not just his understanding, but his heart. A close friend, someone he had confided in during his period of despair, reached out to him with an opportunity that seemed promising. It was a small project, modest in scale, but it had the potential to grow. Unlike the previous door that had closed, this one appeared open and inviting. Yet uncertainty lingered. Ayaan felt the familiar pull of doubt, fear that it might lead to another disappointment, a trap disguised as opportunity. He spent hours in silent reflection, sitting cross-legged on the floor of his room, hands resting on his knees. He closed his eyes, feeling the quiet rhythm of his own breath, and spoke inwardly to Allah. "Ya Allah, guide me. Show me what is truly best for my heart is still learning to trust fully." That night, as Ayaan lay awake, he remembered the words of an elder he had once met in the masjid. Sometimes, the door that closes is the one that saves you from harm. Other times, the one that opens is the path to the rizq Allah has already written for you. The words resonated deeply. Ayaan realized that trust in Allah was not only about accepting closures, but also about stepping forward when guidance illuminates a path. The following morning, he approached the project with caution and care. Every step was deliberate, every action measured, yet his heart carried a quiet hope. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the modest project began to bear fruit. What initially seemed like a small opportunity gradually expanded into something significant, providing him not only financial stability, but also a sense of purpose and fulfillment he had never anticipated. As Ayaan witnessed the unfolding of this new path, he began to notice subtle signs of Allah's presence everywhere. A word of encouragement from a stranger, a timely piece of advice, a moment of insight. During prayer, each small detail reinforced the understanding that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The heavy weight of past disappointment was replaced by gratitude, a soft, enduring gratitude that filled the spaces where fear and doubt had once resided. Yet, as his external circumstances improved, Ayaan faced an internal challenge, a lingering attachment to the past. He remembered vividly the door that had closed, the opportunity lost, and the months of despair that had followed. It was easy to see only the hardship, to measure life by moments of loss rather than moments of divine mercy. He understood then that true faith is cultivated not only in recognizing the blessings that come, but also in embracing the wisdom of what does not come. In a quiet, solitary moment, Ayaan went to the masjid once again, standing under the soft glow of the crescent moon. The walls, worn and familiar, echoed the lessons he had learned. He raised his hands in dua, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ya Allah, I trust in your timing. I accept what you have given me and what you have withheld. Guide me always on the path that is best for my faith, my heart, and my soul." Tears filled his eyes, but this time they were not tears of confusion or sorrow. They were tears of understanding, of humility, and of surrender to a wisdom far greater than his own. Ayaan's heart had transformed from questioning, from yearning, from doubt, into a heart that recognized the beauty in Allah's decree, even when it arrived wrapped in hardship. Days turned into months, and Ayaan began to see the ripple effects of patience and trust. Opportunities continued to unfold, each one guided in ways that aligned with his values, his capabilities, and his purpose. He realized that the door that had closed months ago was a turning point, a divine pivot that had redirected his life toward something far more sustaining and meaningful. One evening, he received a letter from someone he had met during the early days of his despair, a stranger who had experienced a similar setback. The letter spoke of heartbreak, of unanswered prayers, and of despair. Ayaan felt a quiet calling within him, a desire to share what he had learned. He wrote back, explaining gently that sometimes what appears as loss is protection, that patience and trust in Allah are the bridges to blessings unseen, and that every closed door carries with it a hidden mercy. As he folded the letter and set it aside, Ayaan felt a sense of completion. The trials, the losses, the fears, each had served its purpose. He understood deeply now that faith is not measured by the doors that open or close, but by the heart that remains steadfast, that trusts, that surrenders. He felt a connection to a wisdom far beyond himself, a quiet intimacy with Allah that required no words, only understanding, reflection, and unwavering trust. And in the stillness of that night, as the wind whispered outside and the moonlight painted gentle patterns across his room, Ayaan finally smiled with a calm certainty he had never known before. He understood that the greatest miracles are often invisible, that the most profound blessings are wrapped in patience, and that Allah's protection often comes through the very things the heart initially mourns. It was in this realization, in the quiet, in the surrender, in the trust, that Ayaan experienced a transformation deeper than any success or loss could provide. The door Allah had closed to save him had not been a denial. It had been mercy, protection, guidance. And in this understanding, his faith blossomed, unshaken, resilient, and enduring. Sometimes, the greatest victories are not the ones we see, but the ones that unfold quietly within our hearts, teaching us trust, patience, and the infinite wisdom of Allah's plan. In the days that followed, Ayaan's life settled into a rhythm marked not by the highs and lows of chance, but by a quiet awareness of Allah's guidance in every moment. The modest project he had embraced continued to grow steadily, providing him with not only financial stability, but a deeper sense of purpose. Every task, every interaction, every small success became a reminder that the path Allah had chosen for him was far more fitting than any he had imagined for himself. Ayaan began to notice the subtle ways in which divine mercy had shaped his journey. The closed door that had once filled him with despair now appeared as a shield, protecting him from consequences he had not understood. He remembered the disappointment, the restless nights, the silent tears, and he realized that each moment of struggle had been a step toward a wisdom he could not have gained otherwise. What once felt like loss had, in truth, been a form of protection, a gentle nudge from Allah toward a path better suited to his faith, character, and future. As he walked through his neighborhood, one evening, Ayaan saw familiar faces, familiar streets, and familiar routines, but everything seemed infused with a quiet clarity. The marketplace, once a place of distraction and casual observation, now felt like a reflection of life itself, full of opportunities for gratitude, compassion, and reflection. Children's laughter, the aroma of street food, and the soft glow of evening lights all reminded him of the beauty in ordinary moments, moments he had once overlooked in his preoccupation with loss and disappointment. He thought about the past months, the struggles, the unanswered prayers, and the unexpected revelations. Each event, each closed door, each painful delay had been a lesson in patience, trust, and surrender. He realized that faith is not simply the hope for blessings received, but the steadfast acceptance of Allah's wisdom, even when the heart struggles to understand. Ayaan's transformation extended beyond himself. Friends and family noticed a change in him, a calmness, a depth, a quiet confidence rooted in understanding rather than circumstance. He became someone who could comfort others in their own trials, someone who could offer words of reflection and empathy, grounded in the knowledge that what Allah decrees is always for the ultimate good. One evening, as he sat alone in quiet reflection, Ayaan whispered a heartfelt acknowledgement. "Alhamdulillah for what you gave and for what you withheld." The words carried weight, a recognition that every closed door had been a divine safeguard, every delay, a hidden blessing. In that moment, he understood that life's uncertainties, when met with patience and trust, lead not to despair but to clarity, peace, and a deeper connection with Allah. The lessons of those months were simple, yet profound. Sometimes the greatest mercy comes through what is withheld, and the most enduring blessings arrive through patience. The door Allah closed for Ayaan had been a mercy, a protection, and a guide toward a better path. And in accepting this truth, he felt a peace that surpassed all prior worry, a reassurance that Allah's plan is perfect, even when it unfolds in ways the heart cannot immediately see. Life often tests the heart in ways we cannot understand, placing us in moments of uncertainty, disappointment, and loss. Yet, these trials are never meaningless. The story of Ayaan teaches us that what feels like a closed door is often a shield from harm, a protection placed by Allah, whose wisdom surpasses human comprehension. When prayers seem unanswered and hopes deferred, it is not always a denial. Sometimes it is mercy in disguise. Patience, trust, and reflection are the bridges between confusion and clarity. Ayaan's journey reminds us that faith is not measured by the doors that open, but by the heart that remains steadfast through the ones that close. Every hardship carries a lesson, and every delay carries a hidden blessing. The true understanding of Allah's plan comes when we surrender our expectations, embrace divine timing, and recognize that every moment, joyous or painful, is part of a greater design. Let us pray. O Allah, grant us the wisdom to trust your plan, the patience to endure life's tests, and the strength to see your mercy in every closed door. Guide our hearts toward the paths that bring us closer to you, and help us recognize your blessings, even when they arrive in ways we do not expect. Amin. May we all find comfort in knowing that what Allah withholds is often protection, and what He grants is always best.